My name is Darryl Bellamy, and I collect students' fears for a living. Literally thousands. I believe that we are all one fearless moment away from everything that you want in your life. One fearless moment, and it's those small moments that we take that winds up adding to big movements in our lives. So in 2015, I was speaking on the campus. I think it started with UNC, ended with Charlotte. And I was talking to student leaders there. And I did something I never did before. What I did was I asked them to write down their fear. And as I didn't take those home, or I took some time and I sat down and I started reading those fears, but I didn't share them with them. But as I read those fears that day, I was amazed by not only the transparency, but what they showed and how deep they got. So here's the thing. Now I ask students around the country to answer the question, what do you fear? Now, y'all, I used to get answers such as spiders and heights and your mama, depending on the age group. So I decided that if I asked better questions, I would get better answers. So now I ask the question, or I ask students to finish the statement, I fear that. Answer that statement and tell me, what is that thing that's stopping you from getting to that next level? In every audience that I speak to, they each get a chance to take that fear, bring it up, no matter if it's 5 to 3,000, bring that up and share that with me on one of those note cards. So now I want to share with you some of those fears I've collected from students across the country. If any of these connect with you, all I want you to do is just snap for me. Can you all snap? So the first one. My biggest fear is never being good enough. My biggest fear is that I overthink situations and sometimes underestimate myself. I fear that I will not be remembered when I graduate, that I won't have a lasting impact. I fear that I worry too much about confrontation, so I sometimes avoid those tough conversations. I fear that one day all my passion and hard work will not be enough to make a change. I fear that I will not end up successful or happy. I fear that one day I will look back and wish I did more. I fear that I will never find what I'm passionate about. I fear that I won't be able to live up to my parents' expectations or what other people around me think about me. I fear that I won't have friends again like in elementary school. Now, this is one that I always sometimes get those laughs and chuckles at, but I want you to think back to your elementary school and middle school years. Think about that. Aren't those kids mean? And they've sometimes said mean things to you. You've sometimes heard those mean things that's sometimes stopping you from moving forward. Y'all, let it go. Let it go. It's time to address those things so you're able to push through those fears and get to whatever that is that you want for your life. And the next one. I only fear Jesus and my mama. So I get a huge or different ones that sometimes are impactful to people. But the first thing I want you to take from that, the first thing I want you to remember is that the power of anonymous vulnerability. What amazed me was that how vulnerable and how much people share when they think that no one will read it or when they think it won't be shared. In our organizations, in our companies, in those things, in those places that we are, how can we give people the opportunity to share their experiences, to share their fears, to share what's bothering them, and be able to discuss that? A lot of times when I go on campuses, it's the first time we're ever talking about that. Let's start talking about the power of anonymous vulnerability and giving people the chance to share what's bothering them and what their fears are. So at this point, after collecting all those fears, we take them all, we put them in a spreadsheet, and we categorize them. We put them in a software called Atlas. So I want to show you a word cloud of the top fears that came up, or the top words. Failure, people, enough, others. So you can see that spiders and heights aren't up there, right? Or your mama. Here's the top 15 words: failure, people, enough, fear, think, afraid. So you see it runs the gamut. But what surprised me was that the fear of failure showed up more than the actual word fear. People fear failure more than they fear fear itself. So here's the thing. Fear of failure shows up over and over and over again. I fear failure. I fear that people won't accept me for who I am. I fear that I will fail at my goals and not reach my parents' expectations of myself. I fear that my failures will not be accepted. I fear that I won't belong to a workplace or friend group. I fear that not accepting or coming to terms with my truth will hinder me from reaching my full potential as a professional or a confident person. Y'all see the fear of failure and rejection show up over and over again? It doesn't get easier as we get older, but it's important that we address those things and we try to move past that and realize that it's never going to stop. But how can you take moments to think about those moments that might be stopping you and realize that we can move past that piece by piece, day by day? So this brings me to the second one, which is the power of self-belief. And that comes down to the power of confidence in what you believe about yourself. And to be honest, I hate talking about the word confidence because it sounds motivational and inspirational and it's overused. But most of these fears, y'all, most of these fears in here comes down literally to what we believe about ourselves and things in the past that might be affecting you or things that might be stopping you. And at the end of the time or at the end of the moment, we should be able to realize what things we're good at and use those moments in order to push us forward. Here are some. I fear that my lack of confidence will hold me back. I fear that no matter how much I try, I'm not going to be great enough and I'm not good enough. I fear that I'm not good enough to be a leader. I'm not enough to make a difference. I fear that I'm not smart enough. Confidence, confidence, confidence. How often are you going to let that thing hold you back? And how often are we going to challenge people or ask to challenge others who might be dealing with this in their lives? I say that what we have, y'all, is a crisis of confidence. A crisis of confidence. Could be a national emergency if we wanted it to, because oftentimes we're using confidence, and oftentimes the people who need to speak up often aren't speaking up enough. In our organizations, in our companies, how often are we not listening to those voices? How often are we not listening to those voices of people who might need to say something? What's happening to our society because people aren't speaking up because of the fear of failure, because of the fear of judgment, the fear of not feeling good enough? It's time for us to start having this conversation. So as I talk about the crisis of confidence, the third thing I want to talk about is the power of small reminders. Those power of small reminders. So as we sit in the audience and we sometimes take notes, or we sometimes hear things that literally change our mindset in life, are we writing those things down? Are we giving ourselves ways to remind ourselves of the things that we learn in order to push through those fears that we have? Is it writing on your mirror? Is it keeping a journal? What is that thing for you? So years ago, what I started doing was I started giving every audience member something called the Fearless Band as a small reminder. It's a black band that's all black on the outside, because I'm black, just joking. But it's all black, but on the inside of it is written the words, "I'm fearless inside." And what I do is I start receiving stories of how students were able to use that in order to push through fear. So I wanted to share some of those stories in order to inspire you. The first one. It's students who climb Machu Picchu, push through that fear of fearlessness, like sometimes you want to, and use the Fearless Band in order to push through that. The second one is my favorite story. I was speaking at a high school once, y'all. And after I finished speaking, I gave out my business card, and it had my phone number on it. So it had my phone number on it, and about maybe 3 months later, I was speaking on the campus, and I looked down at my phone. And I had a text from a student, and she said this: "We met not too long ago at a speech you gave at my school. You know how you said the bracelets connect us all and give us strength? Make sure yours is on tonight. I'm going on a date for the first time. Wish me luck. Thanks." So just so you know I'm not lying, look, there's a picture of the text. And that's me sending her a picture of the band. So what are those small reminders that you can use to show you who you are and to push you through whatever that is for you? The third story, as a professional and child adolescent psychotherapist in NYC, I have to possess a fearlessness when assisting my students in addressing their mental ailments, regardless of how detrimental their situation. I am better equipped to do that when I'm fearless. The bracelet has allowed me to better inspire the hope in the lives of students daily. And the last story, which is probably the deepest. The other day, we had a guest speaker talk about sexual assault. What I don't tell many people is that I was sexually assaulted in the 7th grade. I went back to my dorm and started talking with one of my close friends who was also sexually assaulted in the 7th grade and hadn't told anybody. Throughout our conversation, I kept playing with the bracelet and allowed me to share more than I had ever told anybody. Her and I are both going to counseling together now. When we are fearless and we share our stories, it's amazing with the people we're able to inspire, people around us who might have your exact same story, and sometimes they might not even know it. You can inspire them. So my question is, what if you shared your story more? What if you pushed through fear more? What if sometimes our universities maybe spent a little bit of less money on sports and spent more money on leadership development? What if our companies spent less money on stock buybacks and spent more money on professional development? What if our country put more money into the offense, meaning building our people, than the defense, defending our country? What would our lives look like? What would we be able to push through? And what will we be able to accomplish? At the end of the day, we all have that fearless energy within us. By harnessing that power of vulnerability, by remembering that self-confidence is everything, and every day finding those small reminders, you're going to be fearless in everything that you do. Thank you.